My name's Jer, and I'm going across Canada so that I can come back and catch every single Fringe festival I possibly can and ask as many people as possible what is Fringe theater and Canadian theater and what's its place in North America, and well, this is that.
Munsil, and I am the festival producer and artistic director for Intrepid Theatre, and I am sometimes also a playwright.
What do you love about theatre?
I bailed on creative writing at UVic and went into theatre because the people just seemed more fun to be with than writers, and just kind of ended up staying in theatre. That's a really good, like a really lame reason to be in theatre, except that I liked it. I just liked it.
How would you describe Canadian theatre?
That would be theatre that takes place in Canada. I don't know.
Is there a unifying
what
thing?
Is Canadian
I mean,
theatre?
you've seen a lot of theatre. Is there kind of a unifying thing that is iconic in Canada, or?
Well, you know what? It's funny because when I see for the Uno Festival, with solo shows, there's a huge difference in the solo work that's being produced in the U.S. by independent artists and the solo work that's being produced in Canada. It's very, very different. In the U.S., it seems very personal, my story, all about me. And in Canada, it's generally much more based on a kind of traditional, dramatic, narrative kind of structure. There are more plays, I think, in the solo world being produced in Canada by independent artists, which I think is really interesting, and I think that it's probably because there have been, solo forerunners in Canada who've been great role models for that. If you think of in the States, maybe Spalding Gray being the sort of the prototype for the solo artist, personal story, direct address, and in Canada, Daniel McIver being the prototype. Definitely more structured as a play with themes and using characters and multi-character work. So, I mean, I think there's definitely a big difference there when I look at what artists are making now. But I don't know if that makes it Canadian theatre or not.
That's good. What is Fringe theatre?
Like it's a style of entrepreneurial, motivated, do-it-yourself theatre. It's a way for artists at any level of experience to get an idea on stage in front of an audience. And I think the role of the Fringe Festival is to provide support for those artists and to provide an audience for that kind of work and to educate the local audiences about the value of this kind of experimental work and just testing of ideas. And of course, sometimes out of the Fringe Festival you get very highly polished professional work. But for me, it's most interesting when artists are really kind of stretching themselves and trying new ideas and using the Fringe as a kind of safe place to try something different.
Cool. What inspires you to continue with theatre?
I've really, all of my professional life have worked in theatre, and I can't actually really imagine any other kind of work. I don't see myself fitting into any other kind of work environment, really. It just feels so at home here. But I think it's the people that you work with in theatre that keeps it interesting and fresh, and there's always new ideas and people trying new things, and I find that really inspiring for my own work as an artist, when I have time to work as an artist outside of the administration thing. And that I really feel that theater administration is part of the art form, and that it is a creative art, and that it can fuel your work as an artist as well. So I really see those things as being linked, even though the kind of work that we presented in Intrepid Theatre is not like the kind of work that I write as a writer. So I still think it's good fuel.
What is theatre like in Victoria?
What does the theatre scene like in Victoria? Well, over the last 5 years or so, I mean, we've seen a huge growth in the amount of sort of independent theatre being produced in Victoria, which I think is related to the availability of venues. And we've seen lots of really committed and again, I'm going to use entrepreneurial again. And I don't mean that in the sense of, you know, making money, really, but just people who are motivated to produce their own work. We've seen a lot of students coming out of CCPA and out of UVic who want to do their own work, and so they're coming out of school and they're trying things out for a while. But now we're seeing the next wave, which is those artists are leaving town. And so I think, you know, we are on this kind of, there's a build-up, there's more and more companies and artists, and then they go, and then there's always a kind of little quiet time. And I'm afraid we're headed back into the quiet time. Been lots of really interesting stuff being produced here lately. And, that stuff is having a harder time getting onto a national stage or touring off the island, or Atomic Vaudeville's been doing it a bit. But it's really hard when you have no infrastructure for small companies to spread your work around the country. And so I think that the Victoria theatre scene is quite isolated, and that we don't have an opportunity to be influenced by much from outside because we're not a big center that lots of companies tour to. It's expensive. It's like, you know, the reason we don't have all the big rock concerts here is because it costs a lot of money to get over to the island, and you can't leave after the show's done and move to the next place. So we've been trying to bring in really exciting different work to try to show people what's going on elsewhere in the country and the world in this type of theatre. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what's next, really, for Victoria. We'll keep at it. 25 years of Fringe.